Welcome to Wellsprings Community Church.
So we've been having a series of thoughts that we're in the middle of. We're coming towards the end, I suppose, really, but we're in the middle of still, about giving thanks to God. We've been thinking about how we can give thanks and why we can give thanks, and how we can give thanks in all circumstances, even when we don't feel like giving thanks. And today we're thinking about giving thanks with our whole hearts. I had my birthday recently, just over a week ago. I know lots of you know I was going to have a guessing game to see who could guess closest to which one it was, but it's getting scary now, so I decided not to. When my children were younger, I used to love it when it was my birthday because they would give me presents. But you know when your children are younger and they give you presents, how do they manage to buy those presents? Hard work. Often because you've given them the money to buy the present to give to you. Yeah? So you give them the money so that they can buy a gift to give to you. Harry's not here this morning. He would tell me off if I told you this. There was nothing more exciting than, I don't know when it was, a couple of years ago maybe, when Harry had been earning his own money for something that he'd done. And we went out, I think we'd gone somewhere, and there was a Costa there. And Susie and Rosie were off doing something, and Harry said, "Oh, I'd really love to go into Costa." So we went in, and then he said, "It's all right, Dad, I'll buy it for you." And it wasn't money I'd given him. It was his own money. But you know, it's like they give you a present, but they give you what you've given them. Yeah? Everything that they have is already mine. But it's still such a joy and such a pleasure that they take what you've given them and they give it back to you. Yeah? In a sense, they give thanks to you by taking what you've given them and giving it back. We'll come back to that. Ready to learn some Hebrew this morning? Yeah? Lauren's excited. Good. I'm going to teach you some Hebrew there. That's the Hebrew we're learning today. Anybody tell me what it says? It's not. But that is a good word. It's not thank you. I'm going to teach you this word then. Okay? If you're reading in Hebrew, you read from right to left rather than left to right. Yeah? So we're starting with the letter on the right-hand side. And that letter is a lamed. So it makes a L sound. The letter next to it, the second letter of this word, is a bet. A B. So that says leb. Only it doesn't quite. Because a bet, as well as being sounded as a B, can also be sounded as a V. So when you come to learn Hebrew, it's great fun. So you know Abraham from the Bible? Yeah. No Tottenham supporters in this morning, are there? No. A few years ago, Tottenham had a manager whose last name was Grant, whose first name was Barry's mouthing it. Avram. He was called Avram Grant. But actually his name would have been spelled Abram, like we would spell Abraham, would say Abraham in the Bible. But a B and a V are interchangeable. So rather than it saying Leb, it actually says, when you pronounce it in Hebrew, Lev. So it might be L-E-V is how we would write it, but it says Lev. Lev means heart. A little bit of Hebrew is always helpful. Lev means heart. There it is written there. But what does a person mean? What does the Bible in the Old Testament especially mean when it talks about a heart, when it talks about lev? Let's see where we get to. Can you see that one? When they talk about lev, they're not usually talking about a body part, our heart. Lev can also mean chest. It can also mean intestines. It can mean all kinds of different things. So they're not particularly talking about a body part. They knew that there was an organ in their chest that sustained life, but they had less understanding about what that might mean. And so, for example, they didn't understand about how the brain works to control everything in our body. And actually, in Hebrew, there's no word for brain. In ancient Hebrew, at least, there's no word for brain. Everything that we think of to do with our brain happened in our heart, in our lev. And the feelings that they had all happened in their hearts. You can understand that. Feelings of, if you're really happy, where do you feel it? In here somewhere. When you're feeling sad, where do you feel it? In here somewhere. When you're feeling angry, where do you feel it? In here somewhere. So they had this word lev that wasn't about a body part, but covered the brain and the heart and the intestines and the gut and everything else. Because it was all to do with what you thought and what you felt. Does that make sense? Okay. So we'll push that on a little bit. It was a place of thoughts. If we ask people now, where does all your intellectual activity happen? It's going to be up here somewhere. For them, it was in here. You know, sometimes when you know something, you know it in here somewhere. You understand. You make connections. And you would do that in your lev. You would do that in that inner place that covers the intellect and covers the emotion and covers the understanding and knowing. It's a place of your thoughts. You don't think up here, you think in here. In Hebrew thought. And it's a place of intellect, like we've said. If we read through the Old Testament, let's read through some of the Proverbs and things like that. Wisdom dwells in your heart, it says. It's a place of wisdom. It's a place of intellect. It's where you discern between truth and error, between right and wrong. You do that in your lev, in your heart. And then, like we've said, it's a place of emotions. It's where you feel things. It's where you feel pain. You know the story back in the Old Testament about Hannah, who would become Samuel's mum? But for a long time, Hannah couldn't have any children. She was barren. And the word that it uses there to describe that is that she had a broken heart because of it. Her lev was broken. Her place of thought and intellect and emotion, the center and seat of everything of who she was broken because of it. Perhaps we might say, especially if the children were here, oh, she was feeling sad. But can you see the difference? A heart was broken, is what it says. There's other Bible phrases. What happens when we feel fear? There's a phrase that gets used. Your heart melts within you. That's the literal meaning of when it says the word fear in some places. It's where we feel fear, distress, depression. There's those negative sides as well as the positive sides of what we feel in our lev. But it is a place of joy. To be happy, in Hebrew, in Bible phrases sometimes, it's actually a translation of the words, to be of good heart. So if you're of good heart, then you're happy. It's a place of love, of affection. If you have an affection for something and you love something, then it's the desires of your heart that you see. So, it's this big thing. We sometimes use heart in English in that kind of way, don't we, to describe everything about who we are, but they would use it much more commonly and in a much more obvious way in Hebrew. Lev, the place of thoughts, the place of intellect, the place of emotions. There's something else that it's a place of as well. It's a place of choices. Not only is it the place where you discern between right and wrong, but it's the place that you choose to do one of those things. You make your choices motivated by the desires of your heart. If you pay attention to something and you really want it, what do? You set your heart on something. There's all these phrases that are biblical phrases, that are translations, that are all connected in with the idea of lev, of heart. It's not just a physical thing, but it's thoughts, it's intellect, it's emotion, it's choices. It's about who we are. Proverbs 4:23. Oh, there we are. I've got it there. Have I got? Yes, there it is. Proverbs 4:23 says, guard your heart, guard your lev, because from it flows your whole life. And can you see why that makes sense to a Hebrew mindset? Guard who you are. It's the whole of your life that comes from this. And so, no, I'll take it back. On the bottom of there, lev is about the truth of who we really are. It's that bit that's everything about who we are. Any Sherlock Holmes fans? No. An odd hand went up. Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes, there's a story. I don't know if it's true or not. No one's ever been able to say for certain that it is, but it's one of those things that has been told for years, decades and decades, has been something that happened, but no one's quite sure if it really did. But I'll tell you what's supposed to have happened. Okay, Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes, he liked, amongst other things, to play tricks and things on people. So he sent a telegram to 12 of his best friends, who happened to be 12 of the most respected and influential people in the country at the time. All the telegram said, it didn't say who it was from, all it said was, flee, all has been discovered. Flee, all has been discovered. Within 24 hours, all 12 of these highly respected, influential people had left the country and gone to another place. I don't know if it's true or not. It's told over the years as being a true story of what happened. But even if it's not true, it still, I think, sums up often what happens. In my deepest, darkest down moments, when I'm getting wound up by people and there's all sorts of stuff going on, I don't know if I should admit this or confess this, I'm going to get into trouble. One thing that I think is, yeah, but if I stood at the front of church and went round and said, everybody, I'm going to tell you about this person. Some of the things, I don't know anything really about most of you. But if I said, flee, everything's discovered. Because we all have those things. I have those things. I've just told you about one of those things. How many of my friends would still be my friends if they knew... I'm not going to finish that sentence. How many of my friends would still be my friends if they knew that I thought if they knew my Lev, what would they really think? That might be physical things, it might be thoughts, it might be intellect, it might be emotion, it might be choices. It's our Lev, it's the truth of who we are, it's our heart. Do you want to know some good news? God never gives up on us. No matter what the condition of our Lev is, no matter what the condition of our heart is, He never gives up on us. He doesn't say, flee, everything's discovered. He says, I know everything. Come here, I love you. He knows our Lev. And He loves us anyway. Because that's His Lev. That's His heart. Is the heart of love, and the heart of acceptance, and the heart of reconciliation, and the heart of joy, and the heart of acceptance, and the heart of forgiveness, and the heart of resurrection. I think I've got the translation underneath this one, but otherwise you could have told it to us. Can you see Lev? And then sh, another l, and Lev Shalem. You might hear people say sometimes, and there's that famous Psalm 51, create in me a clean heart, a Lev Shalem, a heart of wholeness and completeness, a heart of peace, a whole heart. Back to my children and their birthday presents. I can give back to God in thanksgiving something of what he's first given me. I can give thanks with my whole heart, my whole lev. Maybe that's effort. Maybe that's time. Maybe that's money. A whole range of things that we can say thank you to God because we're giving back to him what he's first given us. And with my whole heart, with my 110%, I can give back some of those things. The Hebrew word for giving thanks literally means to give testimony, to tell of what God has done for you. So you're saying thank you is telling what God has done for you. That's telling him, like we did earlier, thank you, God, for what you've done for me. But it's also telling others of what God has done for you. There was a psalm that I picked to finish off this part of this morning. Psalm 136. Because what we're going to do is read it together. It's not that tough because you've got the same line over and over again. Okay? Your line, as you can see in red up there, his love endures forever. His love endures forever. God's love goes on forever. Why? Because God's heart, God's lev, is that heart, like we've said, of love and of patience and of forgiveness and of reconciliation. And out of what he's done for us, we can give thanks to him, and we can give thanks about him to those around us. Because his love endures forever. And so this is a famous psalm, and it would have been used in this way in the temple. The person leading would say the first line, then everybody would respond. And it's the same line every time. His love endures forever. So we're going to do it. If you want to, you can stand up for this. Because it would have been a song that was sung in the temple. The Psalms were songs. I'm not going to sing the first line and expect you to sing it back. We'll just say it. But if you want to, you don't have to. But I think sometimes our physical position affects the way that we do things and shows our response to things. If we want to show our thanksgiving to God and to those around us, then let's do it. So, are we ready? Psalm 136. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. Give thanks to the God of gods. Give thanks to the Lord of lords. To him who alone does great wonders, who by his understanding made the heavens, who spread out the earth upon the waters, who made the great lights, the sun to govern the day, the moon and stars to govern the night. To him who struck down the firstborn of Egypt and brought Israel out from among them. with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, to him who divided the Red Sea in two and brought Israel through the midst of it, to him who led his people through the wilderness. I don't know why, but I'm going to say that one again. Maybe that's something for someone here this morning. To him who led his people through the wilderness. He remembered us in our lowly position and freed us from all that enslaves us. He gives food to every creature. And if you can see it, we'll do the last line all together. We give thanks to the God of heaven. His love endures forever. We give thanks with our whole hearts, with our 110%, with our lev, our intellect, our emotion, our feeling, our choices and decisions, everything about who we are can give thanks to God. And when you know that heart means lev and what it means, can you see how much bigger giving our whole hearts to God becomes? But how it's possible, because it's not about feeling and it's not about emotion, not just about feeling and not just about emotion, but about decision and about intellect and about choices and about all those things that we do. That we might have a lev shalem, a clean heart, a pure heart, a right heart, 110% heart. We're going to sing.